Chapter 1. The En-Gedi Scroll. In the 3rd century AD, a Jewish community thrived in En-Gedi near the Dead Sea. Their synagogue held the precious Torah scroll. Then around 600 AD, fire swept through the building. The scroll burned but didn't turn to ash. It carbonized, freezing in place. A book that existed but could never be opened. When archaeologists found it in 1970, it was completely black, completely sealed. The parchment layers had fused into solid carbon. Any attempt to unroll it would destroy it. Conservators tried everything: humidification, chemical treatments. Nothing worked. The scroll remained locked. For decades, it sat in storage, unread. Then in 2015, Dr. Brent Seals proposed something unusual. What if they could read it without touching it at all? They used virtual unwrapping technology, placing the scroll inside a micro-CT scanner. Thousands of X-ray images captured every layer, creating a complete 3D map of its interior. Here's the challenge. Ancient Hebrew ink was carbon-based, just like the burnt parchment. On X-rays, they should look identical, yet the computer revealed something unexpected. The ink had a slightly different density. The difference was microscopic, but it was there. Algorithms digitally unrolled the scroll, layer by layer, and the text emerged. Hebrew letters, complete sentences, verses from Leviticus. When compared to modern biblical texts, the words were virtually identical. This 1,400-year-old scroll matched scriptures still read today with remarkable precision. The discovery proved these sacred writings were copied with extraordinary accuracy, but it raised questions. The scroll survived because it burned in a very specific way. If the fire had been slightly hotter or cooler, the text would be lost forever. Was it chance? Or does burning parchment create a narrow window where information freezes in carbon? Virtual unwrapping has since revealed other damaged texts. The Herculaneum scrolls, medieval manuscripts. Each success shows how much we've already lost. For every text that burned just right, thousands were destroyed completely. So what does the En-Gedi Scroll tell us? That modern technology can recover information from destroyed artifacts? Yes, but the deeper question remains: how many others exist in collections worldwide, dismissed as too damaged? Could there be texts hidden in places we haven't thought to look, waiting for technology we haven't invented yet? Chapter 2. Senenmut's Astronomical Ceiling. Around 1470 BC, a man named Senenmut held extraordinary power in Egypt. As Queen Hatshepsut's chief architect, he built her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, a structure so precisely aligned with celestial events that it still impresses engineers today. Senenmut built his own tomb nearby. When archaeologists entered it, they expected standard funerary art. Instead, they found an astronomical chart painted across the ceiling, one of the oldest detailed star maps ever discovered. Constellations, decanal stars, planetary symbols, all arranged with geometric precision. The chart shows incredible detail. Ursa Major depicted as a bull's leg, Orion shown as the god Osiris. For its era, this was extraordinary, but modern astronomers noticed something odd. The southern constellations appear in the north. The northern constellations sit in the south. The directions are reversed. At first glance, it seems like an error, but Senenmut wasn't guessing. Ancient Egyptian priests maintained detailed astronomical records for religious calendars and agricultural timing. These were systematic observations maintained over generations. One explanation suggests Senenmut painted the sky from a divine perspective, as gods would see it looking down from above. Egyptian afterlife beliefs involved the deceased joining the stars. The ceiling might represent that transformed viewpoint. But there's another possibility. When astronomers simulate the ancient Egyptian sky using precession calculations, some claim Senenmut's chart doesn't match 1470 BC. It matches either several centuries earlier or later. If accurate, he painted a sky from a time period he never lived in. Could Egyptian astronomical records stretch back further than assumed? Did they maintain centuries-old star charts? Or is there an error in how we're interpreting ancient observations? The math works in theory, but ancient astronomers had only naked-eye observations and hand calculations. A third explanation. What if Senenmut deliberately painted star positions that held symbolic meaning, regardless of the contemporary sky? The ceiling might not be a literal map, but a theological statement encoded in astronomical imagery. So which is it? Divine perspective? Ancient knowledge? Or symbolic art? Without written records explaining his intention, we're interpreting silent images. What we know is this: the man who built Egypt's most astronomically precise temples chose to fill his tomb ceiling with a star map that doesn't match his lifetime sky. And perhaps that uncertainty is what makes it compelling. Not because it proves anything extraordinary, but because it reminds us how much about ancient perspectives we simply don't understand. Chapter 3. Red Deer Cave People. In 1989, Chinese archaeologists excavating limestone caves in Yunnan province found human fossils dating to 14,500 to 11,500 years ago. By then, modern Homo sapiens had spread everywhere. Neanderthals had been extinct for 25,000 years. The age of multiple human species was supposed to be over. When paleontologists examined the skulls, something looked wrong. The bone structure was thick and robust, like Homo erectus, which disappeared hundreds of thousands of years earlier. But they also had modern human features. It was a combination that shouldn't exist. Old traits mixed with new ones. The discoverers proposed these might be a previously unknown species. They called them the Red Deer Cave People, after deer remains found nearby. The suggestion sparked debate. How could an archaic-looking population survive while modern humans were building permanent settlements? The next step was DNA analysis. But the subtropical climate destroys ancient DNA rapidly. Despite multiple attempts, researchers couldn't recover usable genetic sequences. Without DNA, paleontologists rely on bone measurements. Some studies concluded they were modern humans with unusual features, perhaps isolated by genetic drift. But other analyses suggested something more complex: hybridization between modern humans and an unknown archaic population. We know this happened before. Modern humans interbred with Neanderthals in Europe and Denisovans in Asia. Most people today carry fragments of their DNA, so the precedent exists. If the Red Deer Cave People represent hybrids, the question becomes, hybrid with what? There's no DNA to identify the archaic parent species. The timeline is particularly intriguing. These people lived 11,500 years ago, at the end of the Ice Age. While the Fertile Crescent saw the first agriculture, the Red Deer Cave inhabitants might have maintained a lifestyle and physical features vanishing elsewhere. So what can we conclude? The honest answer: not much with certainty. They existed. Their bones show unusual features. Whether that makes them a distinct species, hybrids, or variable modern humans is debated. Without DNA, we're missing crucial evidence. What this demonstrates is how incomplete our understanding of human evolution remains. There may be more populations like this waiting to be discovered, or these bones might be the only trace. Either way, the question remains open, because the story of human evolution has never been as simple as we once thought. The more we discover, the more complex it becomes.